Hi, I'm Steve Casely from CBT Nuggets, and welcome to our final nugget in our Prince2 exam preparation series. This nugget is focused on tailoring Prince2. Prince2 is not a one-size-fits-all project management approach. Prince2 has very specific concepts in it that are mandatory and should be followed on all projects, and other concepts that are definitely meant to be tailored and adjusted to suit small projects and to suit large projects. So why do we want to tailor Prince2? We want to tailor Prince2 so that it's appropriate for the project. If you're working on a very small project, you want to tailor it down. And for example, we're going to combine roles. The project manager role, I hope, is a given. There's going to be a project manager role, but the PM will also be the team leader, will also be the quality manager, will also be the configuration manager, and all of these various roles will be combined into the PM. And if it's truly a small project, the PM may also take a delivery responsibility on the project. So that's one very simple example of how we can tailor Prince2 down by combining roles. We can also augment. And on the project I'm running right now, I have a very large, complex project, don't we all? But my project has a large number of vendors, so I am adding extra value or extra components around vendor management and contract management. That the basics of Prince2 understands that we have vendor management, but I felt I needed to augment my vendor management because of the nature of the particular project that I'm going on. So we absolutely need to tailor Prince2, and we need to tailor it because people have a fear, a phobia almost of methodologies, and saying, how can I use that methodology? It's one size fits all. Well, my project is unique. And that's the reason we tailor, is we recognize that every project is unique, and we want to tailor down, tailor up, but make the methodology appropriate for our project while recognizing that there are certain core mandatory components, such as that there will be a project manager on your project that must be adhered to, but lots of flexibility to make the methodology appropriate for your project. We're going to tailor based on size. If it's a large, complex project, we're probably going to augment, and if it is a small project, we're probably going to tailor down. Independent of the size of the project, if it's an extremely complex project, we're going to need more rigor. And therefore, again, if it's a very complex project, we will tailor in additional components to ensure that we've addressed the complexity and probably specifically around risk management. If it's a large, complex project, it's typically going to have a significant amount of risk. We will tailor in, or we will augment the risk management approaches to make sure, again, that it's appropriate for the complexity of our project. If it's a distributed team, if our team is distributed worldwide, we're going to augment some of the communications, and we'll certainly augment the team composition, i.e. the organization of the project, to ensure that we're dealing with the fact that we're dealing with a distributed team. And if it's an organizational culture, if this is a very large, complex org, we may be delivering a conference room scheduling system, my example of a very simple, non-risky project, into a very large, complex organization. Again, we probably need to tailor up or augment Prince2 a little bit to suit that particular type of organization. Or if this is a small organization, everybody is in a single building, we can tailor down, again, based on the size, the complexity, the composition of the team, and the overall organizational structure. But the key is adjusting the methodology to make sure it's appropriate for the project, adhering to the core mandatory components of Prince2, and adopting the other components. And just a couple more comments on the tailoring process. Tailoring is absolutely a deliberate process. We do it during initiation / planning, when we develop our project plan, and we tailor based on the circumstances, and then we submit for approval. And that's the key aspect. Tailoring is not something we do for convenience. Oh, I'm in the middle of my project. I'm running out of time, so therefore I'm going to make a statement that says, this is a risk-free project, so I'm going to skip risk management. Or, oh, I don't have a lot of configuration items in my project, so therefore I'm going to skip all of the stuff around configuration management because I need to save a few hours every day. Tailoring is not dropping for convenience on the fly. Tailoring is very much a deliberate process. We do it during project startup. We tailor out and we define exactly what it is we are tailoring. So we're going to document the tailoring and we're going to submit it for approval as part of the project plan. So if we're doing significant tailoring, our project plan is going to have a chapter called Tailoring, or in the organization I work with, we have a separate document that's called the Tailoring document. And in the Tailoring document, we go through and we click every aspect of our project approach and say, complete, used as is, removed, reason, augmented, reason. So we go through and we deliberately identify every tailoring step that we've done, and we submit it to our PMO for approval. And with the PMO's approval, we then have the ability to proceed with the tailoring. And as discussed, we tailor because we're going to adapt the methodology. We're going to adapt PRINCE2 to be unique and specific to our project situation. So what can we tailor in PRINCE2? What's considered to be mandatory? And what can be tailored? Well, if we look at the organization of PRINCE2, we have a number of principles in PRINCE2. All principles must be followed, but that's not to say we can't tailor within the principles. We must ensure we're following all of our PRINCE2 principles, but we can adjust the level of detail. We can adjust our approach to our principles, but we must follow them. And we'll look at the principles and how they can be tailored in just a moment. The area we have the most flexibility for tailoring is in our PRINCE2 themes. And if there's one theme, and I hope this is already given in your subconscious because of the material we've been through in this Nugget series to date, the business case is not an area that we can tailor. The business case is absolutely key. It's mandatory. But literally every other theme, there is the possibility to do some tailoring. We can, in a very extreme circumstance, totally remove a theme, but we can, again, certainly do a significant amount of adjusting in the themes. And again, we will review the themes in just a moment in this nugget to look at how we can tailor that. And finally, the processes. There is no flexibility for tailoring. We must follow the processes, but again, it's the level of detail can be adjusted in our processes as well to be consistent with the size, complexity, team distribution, and organizational complexity to make it appropriate for our project. So as a reminder, here are our PRINCE2 principles. We've reviewed these in detail earlier in the Nugget series. We're going to look at them for tailoring components in this component. Mandatory. Continued business justification. I hope by now the concept of the business case and the continuous business justification, the cost-benefit analysis, at the end of every stage is front and center. This is PRINCE2. This is the fundamental piece of PRINCE2 critical for success. So we absolutely need to ensure that we do continued business justification throughout. Learn from experience. Again, we've said all of the principles are mandatory, but again, we can adjust. If it's a large, complex project, we will need to do a significant amount of learning from prior experience, going through our corporate best practices, searching the web, finding the best ways to do it. But if it's a very small conference room scheduling system, there is certainly a great degree of latitude for the amount of learning from prior experience, building lessons learned into our project versus accepting the fact that we will go as we continue. Defined roles and responsibilities. Again, we need to ensure that we have the organization defined, but we absolutely have the ability to combine the roles. The PM, as discussed, can also be the quality manager, can be the configuration manager, can be the team lead, and in an extreme case can also be a delivery resource. And I don't particularly recommend the PM taking on delivery responsibilities simply because it can put us into a conflict of interest. Would I rather get this task done on time, the PM side of us, or would I rather ensure that I have taken this extra time to dot every I and cross every T, the delivery side of us? So not a highly recommended tailoring approach, but in a very small project, let's face it, it doesn't make sense to have a PM leading a team of one. So absolutely, we must have defined roles and responsibilities, but we have significant latitude to adjust the roles and responsibilities. Management by stage, mandatory. We have our PRINCE2 processes, and we have our systems development lifecycle. These are our secrets to success. We manage by, we skip no stages, but we can adjust the level of detail in the stage. Management by exception, absolutely mandatory. As a PM, we understand what our tolerances are. We understand how much schedule cost variance we can have and manage within our scope of focus. And we understand when we must escalate that to our project board. Focus on products, absolutely mandatory. This is why we're doing the project. We're doing the project to deliver results to the business. The amount of products we deliver can be tailored specific based on the level of detail. Again, if it's a very small project, it's not inappropriate to combine the analysis and document into one, or analysis and design document into one. But on very large projects, we're probably going to have multiple versions of analysis documents and multiple sign-offs before we move into the design phase. And tailoring, that's why we're here. That's what this nugget is all about. We must tailor so that we ensure PRINCE2 is appropriately sized and fits our project. So not a lot of latitude, as we said already in the principles. They are truly mandatory, with really only a couple of areas that we can do some adaptation with the level of detail. But other than that, if we're going to be a PRINCE2 project, we follow the PRINCE2 principles. But where we have some latitude in PRINCE2 is in our themes. With the notable exception of the business case, which again I'm going to put a great big M in front of. The business case is fundamental. As just discussed in principles, the ongoing business justification is accomplished through the business case. This is the core of PRINCE2. There is no latitude for tailoring. We have a business case, and we update the business case at the end of every stage. The organization, absolutely we can tailor. We can combine roles and responsibilities. We can't skip. There's no possibility of saying, oh, I'm not going to put together a project board, or I'm not going to have a senior customer. Absolutely, we need a project board and we need a senior customer, but we can combine all of those. We can have less members in our project board. We can include the project board and senior management together. We can absolutely combine, but we can't skip. We can't eliminate roles, but small projects, total team size of 4 people. We have a project board consisting of our senior business customer and our senior delivery manager. We have a project manager and we have a delivery resource, period. Quality, there's room for tailoring. Now, I don't want you to go away and saying, "Oh, Steve said we don't really need quality. We can tailor quality out." We can tailor the amount of inspection, the number of independent reviews. We can combine the quality process with the team process. Again, if this is a very small project where there's only a single delivery resource, we're not going to be able to put together large quality review teams. So again, we need to do quality. I'm not saying we're going to eliminate any of our themes, but there's an absolute lot of room in Prince2 to tailor our quality theme to be consistent with the quality expectation from the project, tailoring number one, and tailoring to make it appropriate for the size and type of our project. Planning, I'm going to put a mandatory on that. We must plan. Without a plan, we're lost. And therefore, planning, again, is a fundamental theme. We wouldn't be Prince2 if we didn't plan. Progress and controls, I'm going to put, we can tailor it. We need to report status. I hope that's a given, but maybe we don't need a weekly status and a monthly status and a quarterly status. Especially if this is a small project, we probably never will be long enough to produce a quarterly. But if it's a very small project, we can combine our weekly and our monthly status into a single status. And I would suggest still produce it on a weekly basis. But some of the summary that we would do in the monthly would be done in an executive summary, and we would present a single status report to all management, as opposed to a weekly status report to our project sponsor and a monthly status report to senior executives. Risk absolutely is going to be tailored. This is based on the risk profile of the project. If this is a small project, if this is a risk-free project, as I keep saying, if this is a conference room scheduling system, there's going to be very little risk management. Or if this is an R&D type project, there's going to be very little risk management in place. Change, I'm going to say, is mandatory. If we don't manage change, change will take over. But the degree of rigor we put around change management, again, can be tailored based on the size, complexity of the project, and the number of roles involved with our project. And finally, configuration management. I'm going to say we can tailor it, and it makes me cringe a little bit when I say I can tailor configuration management. But again, I don't need elaborate tools. If this is a small project with 4 people on it, I can have a single shared directory. And all of my formal deliverables and all of my code and all of my working papers are in a single shared drive somewhere on my project network, so that at least it gets backed up on a nightly basis. But a lot of the other discipline and rigor that we discussed earlier on configuration management can be tailored into a very lightweight configuration management approach. And finally, a very brief discussion on processes. These are our Prince2 processes. They are mandatory. We spent a lot of time, a lot of nuggets already in this series discussing what happens in each of these processes. So I'm not going to bore you by going through all of the processes again, but we must do every process. But the level of detail, i.e. the time spent in each process, will tailor for the size, complexity, nature of the project. Starting up a project, if this is a very small, simple project, it may take a few hours. Initiating a project, if it's a very small project, may take a couple of days. But starting up a large, complex, multi-million-dollar project, Starting up a project in and of itself may take a couple of weeks, and initiating a project for that large multi-million-dollar project may take 2 months. So that's where the tailoring happens. Inside the Prince2 processes is the level of detail, the time spent. Starting up simple, couple of hours. Starting up complex, 2 days. Initiating simple, couple of days. Initiating complex, couple of months. Directing a project, we need to ensure that that takes place in every project. That's where we have the management. Controlling a project, making sure that the project is on track, managing project delivery, managing a stage boundary, and closing a project. None of these can be skipped. But again, the level of detail, the time we spend in these is going to be tailored specific to the size, complexity of the project, but we do not skip any of our processes. This concludes our nugget on tailoring Prince2. We must tailor Prince2 to ensure that it is appropriate for the project. And by saying it's appropriate for the project, we're going to scale down if it's a very small project, and we're going to scale up or even augment for large projects. Same goes for very complex projects. It may not have a lot of duration. It may not be a large project size-wise, but it's a very large project complex-wise. So again, if it's a large complex, we're going to scale up, we're going to tailor up, and if it's a simple project, we're going to tailor down. If our team is distributed worldwide, we're going to spend more time and attention to the organization and the roles and responsibilities in the communications. If it's a simple project in a single location, again, we can tailor the team composition down to be consistent with the nature of our project. And finally, we're going to tailor based on the organizational culture. If this is a large, complex organization, again, we'll need more time and attention to our roles and responsibilities, to our communications, to our status reporting. And if this is a simple project being delivered for a single business unit, we can scale down. And what can we tailor? We have our principles. All principles must be adhered to, but there is a little bit of room for tailoring within the principles. We have our themes, significant more latitude for tailoring the themes to adjust for the size, the complexity, and so on of the project. And finally, we have our processes. All processes must be followed, but the level of detail, the amount of work that happens inside the processes is all adjustable. And the key is, the message of this particular nugget is tailor to make it fit, so we don't have people going away and saying, oh, that Prince2, it only works for this type of projects. Prince2 will work for all types of projects. We just have to put that little bit of time and attention up front to tailor it, and we must get the tailoring approved so that it is a premeditated, deliberate process and not something we're doing on the fly to try to deal with project delivery challenges. This concludes our nugget on tailoring Prince2. In fact, this concludes our entire nugget series on the Prince2 exam preparation. I hope these nuggets have been informative for you. I hope these nuggets have given you the confidence to go forward and take and pass your Prince2 examination. And I wish you great success in your ongoing career as a project manager following the Prince2 processes.